In yesterday's game against the Atlanta Falcons, all eyes and all attention were on the Detroit Lions defense to see if they would come out and make a statement. And boy, did they ever make a statement. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy,
but I got a plan, I swear to you,
who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
Led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. I'm your host David T. Pike, and we are diving in right now. So, just want to say welcome all back to the channel. Thank you all for your guys' view. Thank you all for your guys' support. Thank you all for your guys' patronage. Just want to continue to say God bless. Thank you all for everything that you all do. And with having said that, let's dive into today's content. So, here's the thing, folks. We knew that coming into this game against the Atlanta Falcons, that the Lions defense was going to be under a damn microscope. We knew that everything that was going to happen and everything that was not going to happen was going to be under heavy scrutiny, under heavy criticism, and I don't know if, Aaron Glenn heard the criticism last week, not necessarily from my channel, but from everywhere else. I don't know if the Lions players heard that criticism, and quite frankly, I don't freaking care. I love the fact that the Detroit Lions defense, it came out and it literally shut down. Absolutely stopped cold the Atlanta Falcons offense. Like, absolutely just dominated, annihilated the Atlanta Falcons offense. If you guys go back to my previous episode where I talked about how the Detroit Lions defense had to try and stop the Atlanta Falcons offense, and I'll put that episode link back up at the top right here. If you go back and you watch that video with the film study breakdown that I gave, the Falcons virtually did exactly what I said they were going to do, and the freaking Lions, the Detroit Lions, literally almost to a T did exactly what I said they needed to do on defense. They had to run stunts. They had to bring the pressure. They had to stop the running game. All things that virtually everybody else was saying too. But the thing of the matter is that for once, that's exactly what the Lions did. And for once, Aaron Glenn did exactly what he needed to do in this game to get the Lions in the best position possible to win this game with a great defensive effort. And I already can say this right now. As far as I am concerned, that right there, that's the standard. That kind of a defensive effort, that's the standard. And I know there's a lot of fans, there's a lot of people that literally saw my last two episodes where I was extremely vocal, extremely critical of Aaron Glenn, and they left me a couple of comments. I'll address those later in the video because that's not for right now, but I will address that here at the end. But let's actually talk about what the Lions did on defense. Here's some of the things that were truly impressive with that defensive effort from the Detroit Lions. Here's what was truly impressive. As we already knew, the Atlanta Falcons were coming into that game against the Lions yesterday at Ford Field having an offense that had a top 5 rushing attack. And that was between running backs Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. Both of those guys were coming into that game red stinking hot. Like, they were absolutely on fire as far as the statistics were concerned, as far as what they'd been able to do over the last 2 weeks, and the stats proved it. Again, I talked about it before. Bijan Robinson, 29 attempts, 180 yards, 6.2 an average a rush. Tyler Algier, 31 attempts, 123 yards, 4 an average a rush, with 2 rushing touchdowns. They were looking absolutely dominant as a 1-2 punch combo out of the Falcons' backfield. And everybody knew, hey, this is exactly how the Falcons are going to try and win this game. They are going to try and play ball control. They are going to try and run the ball down the Lions' throat. And I told everybody, I'm like, listen here, folks. The Lions are sporting a top 10 rush defense. They are sporting a good defense as far as defending against the rush. This should be a good litmus test to see if the Lions defense is actually solid, is actually for real in terms of the rush defense. Because, hey, last week against the Seattle Seahawks, we went up against Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. Did very well in that game. But I'm going to tell you this right now. There is no way that anybody, any analyst, anywhere could say that the Lions were going to do an even better effort in terms of shutting down Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier than what they did last week against the Seattle Seahawks. Because after this game was done, I checked the stats, and I'm sure everybody else has at this point, but when you hold Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier to 10 attempts for 33 yards at 3.3 an average a rush, and 7 attempts to 12 yards at 1.7 an average an attempt for no touchdowns. Dude, you've taken the best rushing attack in the game as far as a 1-2 combo, and you completely shut it down. In essence, what the Lions defense did is they became a stone wall. They hardly, if ever, broke. They hardly, if ever, had any sort of problem containing the rushing element of the Atlanta Falcons. And when you think of how damn important and damn impressive that is considering this victory, let me show you guys some more stats that are just absolutely bewildering here. Again, the longest rush of the day for the Atlanta Falcons was an 11-yard rush. So in essence, only one time did they crack or come close to cracking the 10-yard mark for a first down. When you consider yet again how impressive that is for how good the Falcons' rushing attack is, I'm absolutely swollen with pride. I am absolutely just feeling my oats right now, and it's a good feeling to have. They also allowed no touchdowns of any type in that game yesterday. No passing touchdowns, no rushing touchdowns, no defensive touchdowns, nothing. The only points scored by the Falcons yesterday were on field goals. 2 of them. And then if you go even further into the stats, the Detroit Lions only gave up 201 passing yards according to Desmond Ritter's stat line. But when you consider the amount of sacks that we had yesterday, it goes from 201 down to 139. And that's because the Lions had 7 sacks, and I think it was for what, like 62 yards? 62 yards of sack coverage right there. Like, that's just absolutely crazy, especially when you consider the fact that through the first 2 games prior to this, we'd only had 1 sack, and that sack took 13 seconds to execute. So we go from 1 sack that takes literally a millennia in terms of football playing time to freaking 7 sacks by 6 different players. Dude, that right there was the difference in my opinion. The ability to use stunts to get pressure on Desmond Ridder. And like I said in that previous episode, this was a prime game for the Lions defensive front to just come out and dominate and get several sacks on Desmond Ridder. I wasn't thinking 7 sacks, but boy, I'm ever freaking ecstatic with the outcome. I'm absolutely just thrilled beyond a shadow of a doubt. But again, it only gets better. Not only did the Lions have 7 sacks from 6 different players, they also had 11 tackles for loss. Here's what I got to say about this. You pressure the quarterback. You sack him 7 times. You get 11 tackles for loss on ball carriers behind the line of scrimmage. You hold the quarterback to just a smidge, 1 yard over 200 passing yards, and you hold the best rushing attack in the NFL as far as a 1-2 combo with the Falcons in Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and you hold them combined together for under 50 yards rushing. Dude, you have yourself a complete defensive just manslaughtering effect of a freaking offense. That is exactly what we saw from the Detroit Lions defense yesterday. They absolutely annihilated. They murdered the freaking Falcons at Ford Field on their defense. That's what they did. The Falcons offense literally had nothing to work with throughout the majority of that game. And it was plainly obvious. Because again, like I said, 7 sacks from 6 different players. Think about this. Like I said, first 2 weeks we only had 1 sack, right? But that wasn't even from the defensive line. It was a linebacker that got that sack. From yesterday's game against the Falcons, 5 of those 7 sacks came from defensive linemen or edge rushers. 2 sacks from Aiden Hutchinson, who also had a forced fumble and fumble recovery, and had 4 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Then you have Aleem McNeil, who has 1 sack, 3 tackles, a tackle for loss. Then you have Benito Jones, 1 sack, 2 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. And then the last one of that group was Charles Harris, who also had a sack, 3 tackles, and 2 tackles for loss. What you're seeing there is that up front, the Lions defense not only was able to get pressure and sack Desmond Ridder, they were able to get behind the line of scrimmage and make plays in the backfield to stop the Falcons' rushing attack cold. They just absolutely didn't even allow it to get started. And when you can make plays in the backfield and not allow those running backs to get anywhere to where they can kind of get some open space, that's when you know you're doing a really damn good job. But again, it's not just the linemen that did a great job. It's also the linebackers. The linebackers picked up 2 more sacks. Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes got a sack. But Jack Campbell also had 6 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Derek Barnes had a sack, but 3 tackles and also 1 tackle for loss. So what you saw there is a complete effort, a complete unit effort from the front 7. But again, let's go to the backfield. Let's go to the defensive secondary. Not only did, the Lions front 7 get into Desmond Ridder's face and pressure him all day, they also got 8 quarterback hits that didn't result in a sack. But again, 7 sacks, 8 quarterback hits. Desmond Ridder threw the ball just under a hair of 40 times the whole game. So you're saying about half of the time that Desmond Ridder dropped back to throw, he was being harassed. But then you have to think about the effect of when Desmond Ridder actually did get the ball off and throw it away. The defensive secondary of the Lions had 7 passes defended. So not only was the defensive line and linebackers getting after the quarterback and sacking him, pressuring him, hurrying him, hitting him, then you have the effect that the defensive secondary is swatting down passes and not allowing those passes to be completed. So again, a complete unified effort from the defense. And perhaps one of the best stats other than what I've already brought out was the stat line for Desmond Ridder. I remember a lot of Falcons fans in my previous episodes wanted to tell me that Desmond Ridder was just going to come in and was just going to destroy the Detroit Lions. They said, oh, watch, Desmond Ridder's going to have himself a day. He's going to get 3 touchdowns, whatever. Desmond Ridder's going to be the reason that the Falcons win and the Lions lose, because I said that Desmond Ridder was the Achilles heel of the Atlanta Falcons, and I was proven right. Again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just stating the facts of what I said. And when you take a look at the stat line of Desmond Ridder, it's absolutely justified. He had 21 completions for 38 attempts, which is at 55 completion percentage. That's absolutely horrible for a modern quarterback. As I said, 201 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, which that was a lucky thing by him. But here's where it gets really bad. He had a 70.2 passer rating and a dismal, absolutely horrible, horrendous 11.2 QBR rating. I'm sorry, at that point, you were the reason you lost. I mean, obvious that the rushing attack of the Falcons didn't get going, but it was pretty plainly obvious that that wasn't going to happen by halftime. So pretty much everybody knew, like I said, that the Falcons were going to have to rely on Desmond Ridder to win the game. And when push came to shove, Ridder couldn't deliver on the goods because, as I said, he's not a competent passer. A lot of people are going to say, David, he only played 4 games last year. He's still considered a rookie. I don't care. I've seen rookie quarterbacks come in and they've done a sight better than what Ridder did. The point of the matter is Ritter's not a competent quarterback, and he's the weakest link of the Falcons' offense, and unless they upgrade their quarterback position or Ritter shows massive improvement, the Falcons are not going to go very far. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying that to gloat. It's just the facts, and the facts were on plainly obvious and painful display yesterday against the Detroit Lions defense. A defense, mind you, that in the secondary had Jerry Jacobs, who got flagged 3 times for defensive pass interference. We did not have Kirby Joseph, and we did not have C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But yet, we still held Desmond Ridder in check. Man, I was tripping over my own tongue there. And as I said, that defensive secondary almost got 2 interceptions on Desmond Ridder. If Tracy Walker hadn't dropped both of them, that stat line that I just gave Desmond Ridder would look even worse. So again, a completely good, dominating effort by the Lions defense yesterday. Really, the only complaint I could have about the Lions defense is the penalties. And honestly, that's not even a big complaint because as us Lions fans already know, we're going to complain about the calls all the time because the refs are literally crappy when it comes to making good calls in terms of the game plan. It didn't matter if it was the bad horse collar calls, didn't matter if it was the defensive pass interference, they make bad calls all the time. And if that's the worst I have to complain about, I'm happy. Now, as I said earlier, I know there's a lot of fans that have started tuning back into my show that are like, oh, David, you said that we should fire Aaron Glenn, and now this whole thing happens. Are you going to eat your crow? Are you going to say that you were wrong? No, I'm not. Here's what it's going to take for me to say that I was wrong. Here's what it's going to take for me to rescind it, and I've said it in some of my comments already. The problem with Aaron Glenn is that Aaron Glenn is inconsistent. We have seen this diamond dance out of Aaron Glenn for the last 2 years. He will call 1, 2, maybe 3 good games in a row, and then all of a sudden, the next 3, 4, 5 games, it's like, where in the thunder did Aaron Glenn go? Where did this defense go? Why are we suddenly now all of a sudden back where we started a couple of weeks prior? And we've seen this happen. We saw it happen all throughout 2021. We saw it happen through the first half of the season in 2022, and we just saw it literally last week against the Seahawks. And if you really want to get technical, we saw it against the Panthers last year at the end of the year. That game ultimately cost us a shot at the playoffs. So here's my situation. Here's my standard. Because Aaron Glenn showed today against the Falcons that that's the kind of defense he's capable of bringing out on the turf. That's the kind of defense that we can expect to see on Sunday. Okay, that's the bar. That is your minimum requirement every single game. If you can do that every single game for the next 14 games until the end of the year, I'll rescind my statement and I will eat my crow happily. But unless that happens, I still want Aaron Glenn gone because the inconsistency factor is what is going to hold the Lions back. Again, you have to understand the standard that the Lions have now set for themselves. We're not talking about, oh, you know what, gee, shucks, we'll try and get it better the next time. No, the standard has been set. The marching orders have been set. The mantra has been set. Listen, we are here to compete. We are here to win. We are here to contend. You cannot do any of those things if you cannot consistently show up week after week after week. The players are required to do it. The coaches are required to do it. Dan Campbell, for the most part, every single week, he is steady as a freaking straight line. He does not waver. Ben Johnson, every single week, he's got that offense working and humming along. Why can't we hold Aaron Glenn to the same standard? So that's my standard. That's my bar. He's got 14 games to pull off the exact same thing he did against the Atlanta Falcons, and if he does that, I'll happily rescind my statement. I will make a video and say I was wrong, and I will do it happily. But that's the standard. The standard in the NFL is to be consistent above all else, and that's what Aaron Glenn has to do. He's got 14 games to prove to me, okay, now I'm willing to get off the bandwagon of firing Aaron Glenn. But unless that happens, and I'll be honest, I don't have a whole lot of faith in it, I still say Aaron Glenn needs to go. And I know I'm going to be speaking to the wind because it really doesn't matter what I have to say. But I know a lot of people want to see me eat my crow. You want to see me eat my crow? Let's see Aaron Glenn do it for 14 more games. That's my standard. But anyway, didn't want to take too long on that one, but I knew a lot of people were going to continue to ask me about that over the coming days, and I figured, you know what, just take a few minutes and explain it right now and get it over with. But having said that, I just want to say, if you liked what you saw, by all means, I'm just going to put this very short and simple. Thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode that's coming at the end of this one. And with that, if you also like what you saw, I encourage y'all to do one of these three things. Like, comment, and subscribe. Or do all three of them. And if you have subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not yet had a chance to do so, I highly encourage y'all, please, make sure you turn that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. The number's constantly going up, but we want to get more subscribers. We want to get more people that are turning that bell notification icon so that way you keep coming back to the channel and you don't miss any more content that I push out, because I'm pushing out content at a rapid pace. And with that, folks, I also want to encourage y'all to please share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with anybody and everybody that you can. And with that being said, folks, this is MCM signing off for now. And I just want to say again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for your view. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your support. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.